Deep within each of us, there is a yearning to awaken our inner mystic. In this podcast, we explore topics related to metaphysics, including the law of attraction, spiritual awakening, consciousness, and ascension. We invite you to join us on a journey of awakening the inner mystic in order to unleash magic and miracles in your life. In this episode, we will be exploring the topic of truth versus illusion in part 1 of our 3-part series. It is hard not to notice the current energies of conflicting values and opinions that are swirling around our country right now. We are being inundated by a storm of beliefs that are competing for our attention and our allegiance. Masks versus no masks, CNN News versus Fox News, defund police versus support police, vegan diets versus paleo diets. It is in our faces all the time. These swirling energies are creating chaos and stirring up confusion, making it difficult to sort out truth from non-truth, and more importantly, getting in touch with our own personal truths.
Yes, I feel the same way. It's very confusing. And I have to admit, at certain times, I've been very sucked into the narrative of whatever political situation is going on. Like back in 2016, Irene will remember that I took like a 2-year hiatus from my spiritual journey because I was so sucked in to the narrative at the time. And back in 2016, everyone can remember, I mean, there was a meme about this. People at family gatherings, it was really hard to get together because there was just so much division, just even within your family. And I would literally get in screaming matches with people. I mean, it was really bad.
I remember,
really
I
bad.
remember those times. Luckily, my family all lives really far away. So I didn't have that issue, but yes, I can remember those conversations with my friends.
Yes. And then I was able to finally loosen my grip on my beliefs. I mean, the media had me hook, line, and sinker. What I would do is I would listen every single day so that if someone made an argument against one of my beliefs, I would be well prepared to come back at them. I mean, I was just pissed all the time. And it's so funny going through all this spiritual development and then something like that can just suck you in so quickly. And you just, it's like everything you've ever learned goes out of your head.
Right. I mean, it's great to practice peace, but until someone triggers you, right?
Exactly.
Or steps on your beliefs, right?
Exactly. And so what I did was I stopped watching the news cold turkey because I realized I was being programmed and I was willingly letting myself be programmed. And I love this quote, this Jim Rohn quote. Every day you have to be a guardian at the gate of your mind.
That's beautiful.
I love that. And that is so true.
Yeah.
That is so true.
So Heather, I want you to share that story. So Heather was telling me a story the other day about someone that she encountered at the store. Yeah.
I was at a store and I saw this woman and she was wearing her jacket with many different buttons. I mean, you could tell which political persuasion she was. And I so identified with her. I mean, she was just wearing her labels right there on her and just letting everyone know, like, this is who I am. But is that who she really is? And on this podcast, we always remind people that that is not who you really are. And she was, having those beliefs, that's a part of your ego. Your ego is just that mask that you wear that includes all of your beliefs, that mask that you put on in front of everybody, just with all of the labels. But I love what Wayne Dyer says about it. The ego stands for edging God out.
Yes.
So that when you're so attached to those beliefs, you could be missing the divinity in someone else. Someone standing right in front of you may have a different belief than you, but they're still human. They still have the divine within them, just like you do in you. Everybody does. And if you had come from this person's background with their same experiences, you may have their same exact belief systems.
That is a very good point. And I found myself too, like we talked about always getting sucked into something, and with
all the politics going on in the world right now, I find myself sometimes getting so sucked into that where I'm like, well, I can't believe these people would support this person. And I don't know that I could be friends with someone. And then I catch myself and I'm like, what am I talking about? Now, I have friends that embrace, I mean, they're on the opposite ends of the spectrum as far as political beliefs. And I love them dearly. And they are amazing human beings. And I just need to remember that they all have gifts. They're all human. You know, they all have gifts and they all have shadows. You know, they're all equally divine.
That's right. And I've been watching my beliefs recently. I've been watching them like a hawk. And what they do is they shift, like the shifting sands. They're, you know, for instance, I was telling you earlier about back when the pandemic started, I was like Chicken Little, hair on fire. Oh my God, mother henning everybody. You've got to do your hand sanitizer. You've got to wear your mask.
Right.
I was in fear, and other people thought that I was hysterical. And now it's really funny because I'm calm about it. You know, I wear my mask, but I'm not trying to control everybody's every move, out of fear. And the people that thought that I was hysterical in the beginning are now, it's like we're switching places. So it's so funny to watch those beliefs shift.
Yes.
Like shifting sand. So if you're going to be angry at someone for their beliefs, wait a few months, they might change their beliefs. I mean, we do
or
it.
You might, right?
Or
you might be on the other side of the fence, right?
You're exactly right.
Yeah.
I might agree with them in a couple months. It just depends on whatever information you have in front of you. And recently I've been trying to approach everything with the don't know mind, like taking a step back before I cling on to some belief and dig my heels in.
Yes. Yes.
And, you know, I still get riled up, but I try to tune into my gut and ask myself, what's true right now? What is really true?
I love that. Yeah. Now it's interesting you talk about shifting beliefs because, I mean, I really relate to that. I mean, I look at where I was like 7 or 8 years ago in my beliefs and how much they have completely shifted 180. And a pretty concrete example, I mean, and something that shifted quite dramatically just in a month or two was, again, going back to this pandemic. And at the beginning of the pandemic, I was like, you know, why is everyone so afraid? Why are people wearing masks? I think this is an overreaction. And I don't know where this is coming from, but that's how I felt. But I think as I started to really look at the reality of this and see these people that were really getting sick, and I saw that my choice to wear a mask at that point could be affecting somebody else, right? So I saw it from another viewpoint that, yeah, me wearing a mask is not only protecting myself, but protecting other human beings. And when you work with the elderly, that's very important to me. So I've completely shifted my stance on, you know, wearing a mask. But again, it's like I tell my kids, don't judge someone if they are. Don't judge someone if they're not. They are doing what they think is best for them, right? And so that's kind of where we are. We're trying not to judge other people for where they are in their beliefs and where they are in their evolution.
That's very good advice. Yeah. So the truth of who we are goes deeper than the beliefs we identify with. The truth for me right now is that we are divine beings having a human experience. And this human experience is as wide and varied as there are stars in the sky, but we all get to have our own experience.
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, I love that. The truth of who we are goes deeper than the beliefs that we identify with. That is beautiful. So as we're seeing in society, this polarity between beliefs that's getting wider and stronger, what I'm sure we've all noticed is that it's really leading to reactive and very extreme emotions and behaviors. Basically, people are losing their shit. Social media is inundated with, I'm sure everyone's heard, Karens and Kevins who are losing their minds, and people are verbally abusing each other, all in the name of something to do with a mask, right? I mean, people are treating each other like crap because of this one belief that they're clinging so strongly to.
Yeah, I have an example of this. It's not political in nature, but just an example of someone losing their shit as the result of their beliefs. So my sister and I were driving to a shower, And on the way to the shower, we're telling each other a story about these women we had run-ins with that very same day, about how, they were very just disagreeable women. We were upset about this. And so we're lost, or at least we think we are. We pull into this driveway and I look at the GPS. I'm like, oh no, it's just a driveway over. But we look up and this woman comes out of her house and she is just losing her stinking mind. You can tell she's yelling. She's all red in the face.
Because you parked in her drive, or you pulled up in her driveway?
Because we were going to turn around in her driveway.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Yeah.
So Kelly rolls down the window and she goes, this woman says, what are you doing in my driveway? You don't turn around in someone's driveway. And that was her belief.
Right.
And if I had been the person living in that house, I wouldn't have given a crap if someone turned him around in my driveway.
Right.
Well, Kelly says to her, well, I guess we'll let your neighbor know about this, because Kelly realized that, we were going right next door. And so she pulled out of the driveway and pulled in next door. And this woman is still just looking just pissed. So that's just an example of someone holding onto their belief system so tightly that she just reacted so strongly to us. But something tells me that we were not the first person to trigger this woman that day. And in that moment, I saw her as just in so much pain and just trying to get her pain out. Right. That's the way I saw her in that moment.
Yeah. You don't know her circumstances that day. You don't know if, she's in the middle of something, some type of crisis, or someone had previously triggered her. Absolutely. And we don't know where people are coming from sometimes, right?
Exactly. And it caused her to act like a lunatic in front of her neighbor, that just that one little belief about not turning around in someone's driveway. And our beliefs are the filter through which we see the world, and they dictate our behavior and our relationships with people. And I love this quote from Rumi. He just put it so beautifully when he said, out beyond the ideas of right doing and wrongdoing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. Whenever I read that line, I feel such a sense of peace. I really do.
That field is probably full of flowers, doves. I wish I could hang out with
maybe
Ruby
a couple unicorns.
Yeah. It's going back to what you were saying about the filter. That's interesting, because I've studied a healing technique called body talk. And one of the concepts that we talk about in body talk is that when we're born, we are born as this light emanating from us. But through our experiences and through all the programming that we encounter in life, that literally it's like dirt on the light bulb. It's we put these filters or these layers of residue that really, number one, they block our light. And number two, the way we see through, the glass of this light bulb is really skewed. And we're seeing the world through that lens. So it's like putting on the opposite of rose-colored glasses, putting on glasses that
like
are dirty.
Crap-colored glasses.
Yeah.
Glasses, yeah.
Yep.
So I love that quote by Rumi. But how do you get to this field? I mean, it sounds wonderful, but how do you get there?
Right.
And in our next podcast, we're going to go into that more. But I just wanted to leave you with some thoughts by Eckhart Tolle from Practicing the Power of Now, which is one of my favorite books. But what you do is you become the watcher. You become the watcher of what's going on in your current situation. You stay present. You stay conscious. Be the ever alert guardian of your inner space. You need to be present enough to be able to watch the pain body. And the pain body, we'll talk about that next time, but it's an accumulated emotional pain that everybody has. So you watch the pain body directly and feel its energy. It then cannot control your thinking. And
I read that book, and that was a very amazing book, and it really talked about that. And that's a process, right? I mean, being the observer of your behaviors and your emotions, it's a process. I think it's been 7 or 8 years since I've read that book now, and I know for me, I'm still working on that.
Yeah, it's a process, and sometimes you fall off the wagon, sometimes you get back on. It's just a matter of reminding yourself of those intentions. And the other day, when that woman was flipping out on us, I had a lot of compassion for her, but what I could have done is got caught up in the belief that she should not be behaving that way. And I would have gotten sucked into her drama, and I would have been angry with her instead.
Right.
So it works both ways. I mean, most people would agree that behavior was not great. But in that moment, you don't have to react to her by getting sucked into your ego thinking, oh, she shouldn't be behaving that way. Did you see her? Oh my gosh. And talking to everybody about it. I was present enough that time to avoid the trap.
Yeah, because you had your sister do your bidding, right?
Exactly. I got to be the good one.
Right.
She reacted, right?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, while it's healthy to have opinions and beliefs, and in no way are we proposing that one shouldn't have any, right? Because it's hard to live in a world without beliefs. I mean, that would have to be some sage up on a mountain somewhere meditating all the time to not have any of these beliefs that you identify with. But the issue here is about getting sucked into this vortex of intense energy where you're identifying so strongly with this belief that you're willing to hurt other human beings over it. And so my question is, are beliefs healthy if they become more important than other human beings?
That is a great question. I love that question. And it's important to think about and contemplate and really look at your own beliefs. And like Irene was saying, I mean, there are really only a handful of people that we can all name that have been able to break through their beliefs, you know? So this week, I went into the Akashic records and asked about truth versus illusion. And this is what came up. So my process usually is I sit down, I get into the Akashic records, I sit down, and like a vision will come up, and I'll then sit down and do some automatic writing. And this is the writing that came up. The truth is deeper than thoughts and emotions. Love is deeper than thoughts and emotions. We can sense it with our emotions, but love is deeper. We can feel it and imitate it with words and deeds, but love is deeper. Love is an anchor. Love is the fabric on which the whole universal web is woven. Love, the word, can only point to it. It's deeper. It's unfathomable with our human minds. Truth versus illusion. Beyond feelings and thoughts and words, deep under the crashing waves is the deep calm of the ocean. Emotions, thoughts, and deeds churn around on the surface, while love holds steady and abides in the deep. You can anchor in with your intention and do not let go no matter what's going on the surface. Love is pure creative energy and pure potential. Do not veer from your course depending on the emotions, words, and deeds of others. Put your intention in your heart and go forth with it. No matter how things seem, no matter what anyone else does, don't let them take you off your course. You'll be tossed around in the tumult of the ocean instead of anchored into the deep and abiding, all-encompassing love. That is truth, and that is always there. You anchor in through loving deeds, thoughts, and emotions. The emotions will rise and fall and ebb and flow, but you have the choice to anchor into the deep calm of the ocean or be tossed around by the waves on the surface. So the funny thing is, I had been thinking about this concept about the waves on the surface, not with that metaphor, but something kind of similar. So this is my interpretation of what that means, and I've been thinking about it for a while now. A couple weeks ago, I got out some intentions that I had written down years ago, and I started thinking about them. They're written on a tiny little tattered piece of paper that I put in a little wooden box, and I get them out every once in a while and read them. And this is what I wrote down. It was about 10 years ago, and they're big, overarching intentions. I mean, they're pretty big. So number one is to accept myself and love myself just as I am. To live with a heart overflowing with gratitude. To live with my heart filled with joy. To be a force of love and healing in the world. To be present and loving with everyone I meet. To maintain a constant connection to my spirit. And those all seem like pretty tall orders. And I thought to myself, do I live by these intentions? And the answer was, well, sometimes I do, sometimes not. And I started thinking about these intentions as I was interacting with people, and I realized that my behaviors and reactions are very dependent on others' behaviors and reactions. And they're not connected to my intentions. Since then, I've become the watcher, like Eckhart Tolle says. For the past couple of weeks, I've been present, and I can feel my emotions come up. Usually in my heart, I'll feel a little bit of tension or, that little bit of emotional pain. And if I'm present in the moment and just watch the emotion, not resist it, just let it be, but then think about my intentions. So my MO in the past was like, if someone hurt my feelings, I would just kind of shut down. I feel that emotional pain in my heart and I'm like, oh, I'm just going to shut down. It's just kind of a passive aggressive type thing. But what I've been doing is just really thinking about that emotion that comes up and reacting with that intention rather than the emotion that's coming up in the moment.
That's hard to do.
It's really, really hard to do. And if you start small, it's a lot easier. Like if you have a little reaction, it's easier. But if someone gets you going, so you just react.
Right. And I feel like sometimes it's really our family, right? It's our spouses, it's our kids. I think those are the hardest people sometimes to stay centered, because I feel like those are the people that know how to push our buttons.
They do. They're experts.
Right.
And we do it to them too. We know. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're not perfect and certainly we know how to push buttons, whether it be conscious or unconscious. And and I think that sometimes it's easier to start practicing this kind of staying centered in your intention for love is doing this like in a place that might be a little bit more like for me, it's at work. I work with people who have some type of, or many of my patients have some type of dementia. And even in the early stages of dementia where they're fully aware of what's going on, it's just some mild memory issues, but you start to see those personality changes. And a lot of times there's that paranoia factor that comes in, like, you're not going to assess my cognition. You're not going to look at my cognition. And they can get very, very belligerent and they can get very, I remember this one gentleman, I was trying to give him the standardized test to assess his cognition because nurses had referred him because they had noticed that he was starting to be very forgetful and they didn't want to send him home by himself because they were worried that he might not be able to make sound decisions independently. So as I'm trying to assess him, he turns it on me and told me that he thought I was gaslighting him. And his belief was that, I'm sure he had watched some news programs that were talking about gaslighting and, he'd formed some beliefs around that. So I respected that. And I just said, if it's your wish that we do not proceed, I will respect that. So it was easier not to get rattled, I think, in that work setting where you can be more objective and you can practice this in places where you're not so connected to people and that there's fewer heartstrings there.
That's right. A very good point. And also I was thinking about extending that same compassion to yourself. When those beliefs about you come up, can you extend it to yourself when your inner mean girl starts up? You want to put out a podcast? What are you thinking? What are you thinking? That stuff still comes up and you have to look at it and
understand that it's trying to attack you and that it's just your ego trying to bring you down a notch, right? Just like our egos usually do. Yeah, but understand that it's simply just an attack and you are not those thoughts.
Yeah, you're not those thoughts, and we evolved with an ego to keep us safe. I think that's so anytime we try to branch out and do something new, those ego beliefs are going to come up like crazy.
Right. So loving yourself, even though your ego is trying to attack you, loving your, and what I like to say is loving the inner child. It's really embracing that inner child because that's that soft place where we're vulnerable, where we're seeing the world through more of the eyes of innocence and magic and wonder. And I think that inner child can be wounded, and just to extend compassion to it through the process can be very, very helpful. Yeah.
And our ego knows how to push our buttons.
Oh yeah.
It knows
what to say.
Yes.
And they know the part of your body you like the least and when to, get you right where it hurt. Yeah. Well, that brings us to the end of our discussion today. When we started doing the work behind presenting this information about truth and illusion, we really got a lot of information to unpackage through the Akashic records and just through our own research and insights into all the teachings that we've studied. So we're probably going to have this as a 2 to 3 part series. And so next week, we're going to get a little bit deeper into how to tap into your own truth. And so we'll be also going over some strategies on how to do that, specifically, strategies to be able to listen to that inner voice and listen to your heart in order to get truth. So we'd like to thank you for joining us today, and please look forward to our part 2 next week. Sending love to all our listeners out there, and if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to our channel. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram, where you can become part of the Mystic Mamas community. Thank you.